Imagine having a kind of power so quiet, so invisible, that your enemies crumble before you without you ever raising your voice, or even lifting a finger. That's the secret world of Machiavellian mastery, a world where victories happen silently, enemies defeat themselves, and influence is earned without confrontation. Today, we're diving into the timeless secrets of Machiavelli, into those hidden strategies that let you dismantle your enemies quietly, leaving them bewildered, never realizing who pulled the strings. If you've ever wondered how to move unseen while orchestrating events around you, this is your guide. And it all starts with one critical skill: observation. Now, let me be clear, observation isn't just passively watching the world go by. In Machiavelli's world, observation is your deadliest weapon. He believed the strongest individuals don't rush into battles or confrontations. Instead, they stand back. They wait. They study. They notice details others miss. Because if you ever want to bring someone down without a direct fight, you first need to understand who they are at the deepest level. What makes them tick? What terrifies them? What they desperately crave? Where their weaknesses lie? Once you know all that, toppling them becomes quiet and almost effortless. So how do you do this? How do you become a master observer? It starts with patience. You got to silence that urge to react instantly. You've got to step back into a mental space of cool neutrality. That neutrality is crucial. It keeps you from getting emotionally invested in every insult, every piece of gossip, or every minor victory or loss. Instead, you're watching patterns unfold with the detached calm of a chess player studying the board. Because here's the truth: your enemies reveal themselves constantly. They leave trails, patterns. They might overreact when challenged, constantly seek praise and validation, panic over small threats to their reputation, obsess over appearing strong or successful. Each of these quirks is a doorway into their vulnerabilities. Once you spot the pattern, you know exactly where to press or where to simply wait for them to collapse under their own weight. And this is where things get interesting. Machiavelli knew the real secrets aren't spoken out loud. They're hidden in gestures, in micro-expressions, in how someone fidgets when they're nervous or how they hold eye contact or avoid it when the pressure's on. The tiniest pause in a conversation, a slight stiffening of the shoulders, a forced laugh, the tone shift when someone's praised versus criticized. These are your clues. They're the fingerprints left behind by your enemy's unconscious mind. If you want to truly understand someone, watch how they handle stress. See how they react to disappointment. Observe them when they're riding high on praise or success. Because the mask slips in moments of extreme emotion. And when it does, that's when you glimpse the truth. But, and this is critical, your observations must remain invisible. If your enemy realizes you're studying them, they'll put on a performance. They'll hide the very vulnerabilities you're trying to discover. So Machiavelli's rule was simple: never let them see you watching. Appear indifferent. Appear uninterested. Smile politely. Engage just enough to blend in. Meanwhile, your mind is collecting data, storing details for the perfect moment. And remember, your observation shouldn't be limited to your enemy alone. Watch how they interact with others. Who do they trust? Who secretly resents them? Who influences them, even subtly? Because here's the deeper Machiavellian insight. Your enemy's greatest vulnerability often lies not in themselves, but in the network around them. An enemy surrounded by allies is harder to defeat. But if you quietly discover who those allies are and where the cracks lie, you can dismantle their support system piece by piece. Now, as Machiavelli warned, it's not enough to know your enemy. You must also know yourself. Because if you're unaware of your own biases, you'll start projecting your fears or desires onto others, and your observations become clouded and useless. Maybe you see someone as arrogant when really, they're just confident. Maybe you imagine loyalty where there's only convenience. Self-awareness keeps your lens clear. It's your armor against self-deception. So why does all this meticulous observation matter? Because it becomes the foundation for your entire strategy. Once you know how your enemy thinks, what they fear, who influences them, where they're vulnerable, You can shape your plan without ever throwing a direct punch. Maybe you subtly influence how others perceive them. Maybe you quietly isolate them from key allies. Or perhaps you strategically plant seeds of doubt that grow into massive problems down the line. This is the essence of silent power, winning without obvious force, toppling rivals so quietly that nobody even realizes a battle was fought. But observation is only one piece of the puzzle. The next crucial tool in your Machiavellian toolkit is something most people misunderstand entirely: silence. Machiavelli believed that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's a weapon. Most people feel like they have to fill the silence. They're uncomfortable when there's no response, no explanation. They believe staying quiet makes them look weak or indecisive. But Machiavelli flipped that idea completely on its head. To him, silence creates mystery, uncertainty, anxiety. Your enemy wants to provoke you. They want to see a reaction: anger, fear, defensiveness. Because your reactions reveal your hand. But when you respond with silence, you deny them that satisfaction. You rob them of their psychological advantage. Think about it. When someone insults you or challenges you publicly, your immediate instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to fight back. But Machiavelli advises, hold your tongue, because your silence becomes deafening. People start to wonder, are you unfazed? Are you plotting something? Did their attack fail to land? The unknown terrifies people more than any words you could say. Your enemy might even try harder to provoke you, pushing more buttons, spreading rumors, escalating conflicts, all in the desperate hope of breaking your calm. But every time you remain silent, their frustration grows. They start revealing their own insecurities. They become reckless. And in that recklessness, they make mistakes. Machiavelli taught that silence isn't just about refusing to speak. It's about controlling the timing of your words, knowing exactly when to remain silent, and when to break that silence with a single, well-chosen sentence. Silence can be an empty space, or it can be the perfect setup for a strike. Here's another hidden benefit of strategic silence: reputation. When you refuse to engage in petty conflicts or childish arguments, you appear calm, powerful, above the fray. People watching you, from colleagues to friends to onlookers, interpret your silence as wisdom, strength, and discipline. And that builds respect, even admiration. But remember, silence must be deliberate. It's not passive. It's not timid. It's calculated and precise. Mastering silence means knowing when to stay quiet, knowing how long to stay quiet, and knowing when it's finally time to speak and make every word hit like thunder. Machiavelli would say, let your silence speak for you. Let it become your armor. And sometimes, let it become your sharpest blade. In the next part, we're going deeper. We'll talk about how to cultivate a powerful reputation, one so strong that your enemies fear you without you ever raising a hand. Because sometimes, all it takes to win is for your enemies to believe that fighting you simply isn't worth the risk. So far, we've uncovered two powerful Machiavellian secrets: the art of silent observation, the strategic use of silence itself. But Machiavelli's brilliance didn't end there, because once you've mastered watching and waiting, the next step is to craft something even more potent than force, a reputation so strong that it fights battles for you. Let's dive into how you build the kind of reputation that makes enemies think twice before ever daring to cross you. Machiavelli believed this above almost anything else. It is not necessary that a prince possess all the virtues, but it is necessary that he appear to possess them. That's the core of reputation. Because in the real world, perception is power. You don't always have to be powerful. You just have to be perceived as powerful. People don't respond to your private thoughts or secret plans. They respond to what they think you're capable of. So, Machiavelli's secret was to control that perception relentlessly. And that means mastering two things: mystery, selective visibility. Let's talk about mystery first. Most people think being liked is the same as being respected. So they overshare. They talk too much. They reveal every thought, every plan, every detail of their personal lives. They believe transparency builds trust. But Machiavelli would warn, transparency kills mystery, and mystery breeds power. Think of people who have an almost magnetic presence. Often, it's not because they're loud. It's because you can't quite figure them out. They don't tell you everything. They drop hints. They smile knowingly. They leave conversations incomplete. And in that space of uncertainty, your mind starts spinning stories about them. Are they more powerful than they look? Do they know something you don't? Are they connected to people in high places? Even if none of that's true, the possibility alone makes people cautious. Machiavelli said that the prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, honest, and religious, but be capable of the opposite if needed. It sounds ruthless, but it's not about being fake. It's about knowing when to reveal your cards and when to keep them hidden. Because once your enemies think they know everything about you, they can predict you. And if they can predict you, they can defeat you. So cultivate mystery. Don't share every thought. Don't advertise every emotion. Let your silence raise questions. Because sometimes, fear of the unknown is stronger than any weapon. Now let's talk about selective visibility. Machiavelli understood that humans judge based on symbols and appearances. So he advised rulers to perform occasional, visible acts of power. Not constant aggression, but small moments that send a clear message. I'm not someone to be taken lightly. In your own life, this means choosing moments where you stand your ground publicly. It could be calling out a lie in a meeting, calmly but firmly, setting a boundary in front of others, showing you won't be manipulated, walking away from a situation that disrespects you without looking back. These moments don't have to be dramatic, but they do have to be visible, because people remember symbols more than words. One visible display of quiet strength can erase 100 doubts about your resolve. But here's the nuance. Your displays of power should always feel measured, never excessive. If you overreact to small slights, people start thinking you're unstable or insecure. If you respond with calm precision, they see you as formidable. Machiavelli would remind you, let others be loud and frantic. You remain composed, because composure is intimidating in a world addicted to chaos. So how does this tie into ruining your enemies without lifting a finger? Simple. A strong reputation makes most enemies self-destruct. They fear attacking you because they suspect you have unseen allies. You know secrets that could ruin them. You're far stronger than you appear. And often, that fear is enough to keep them silent. But if they do try to strike, your reputation ensures others will side with you. Because people love backing the side that seems stronger, safer, and more in control. Now, let's explore a Machiavellian twist on reputation. Indirect influence. Instead of confronting your enemies directly, you can quietly guide others' perception of them. How? Through subtle suggestion. Imagine someone in your workplace who's quietly undermining you. Instead of openly accusing them, you drop small, calculated observations in conversations. I've noticed John seems pretty anxious lately. I wonder if he's under too much pressure. Interesting how Susan always changes her story depending on who she's talking to. Nothing overt, no direct accusation, just planting seeds of doubt. Over time, these seeds grow. People start questioning your enemy's reliability or stability, all without you ever lifting a finger. Machiavelli understood that the court of public opinion is often more powerful than any sword. Because when your enemy starts losing their reputation, they panic. They become defensive. They overcompensate. They reveal their insecurities. And eventually, they damage themselves far worse than you ever could. This is silent power at its finest. But a word of caution. Machiavellian tactics are not about cruelty for cruelty's sake. They're about self-preservation and strategic advantage. If you use these tools mindlessly or maliciously, you create more enemies than you can handle. And eventually, the silent power you've built will turn against you. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't just in manipulation, it was in restraint. Know when to deploy these strategies. Know when to hold back. Here's a key question to ask yourself. Do I truly need to ruin this enemy? Or is their downfall inevitable without my interference? Many times, your enemy will sabotage themselves simply by being who they are. The insecure colleague will eventually implode from overreaching. The dishonest partner will expose themselves through contradictions. The gossip will be caught in their own web of lies. Sometimes, the most Machiavellian move is to simply wait. Because as Machiavelli said, never interfere with an enemy when he is in the process of destroying himself. Now let's connect this back to emotional control, another pillar of silent power. If you want to maintain your reputation and wield quiet influence, you have to master your own emotions. Because the fastest way to lose power is to overreact. Your enemy wants you emotional because emotions cloud judgment. They make you impulsive, sloppy, and easy to read. So train yourself to respond slowly. When you feel anger, embarrassment, fear, anxiety, pause, breathe, step back, give no immediate reaction. Even a few moments of silence can save you from saying something that destroys months or years of careful reputation building. Machiavelli's principle was simple. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. So while your enemy is exploding in public, revealing their flaws, burning bridges, you're composed. People notice. They start to wonder, why doesn't he seem rattled? What does she know that we don't? Why isn't he defending himself? Your composure becomes your reputation, and your reputation becomes your shield. In part 3, we're going even deeper. We'll talk about the ultimate Machiavellian secret, how to make your enemies destroy each other, why indirect conflict is far safer and more effective than open war, and how to remain untouchable even while chaos rages around you. Because sometimes silent power means turning your enemies into each other's problem while you walk away untouched. Stay tuned. We've talked about the power of watching without reacting, of listening without speaking, of building a reputation so sharp, so deliberate, that it shields you like armor. But now we turn to one of Machiavelli's most fascinating and perhaps most unnerving strategies: how to make your enemies destroy each other, and how to do it without getting your hands dirty. Because sometimes the best way to win isn't by attacking directly. It's by stepping back and letting chaos do the work for you. Let's start with a question. What do your enemies all have in common? They want power, they want influence, and they want to be seen as the smartest, strongest, most dominant person in the room. That's your opening, because Machiavelli understood something most people miss. Ambition eats its own. If you want to neutralize your enemies, you don't always need to weaken them. You just need to place them close to others who share their ambition and let nature take its course. Here's how this works in real life. Let's say you're in a competitive environment, maybe a workplace, a creative space, a political setting, and you've identified 2 or more people who are positioning themselves as rivals. They don't trust each other. They both want influence, and they both want to outshine everyone else, including you. Perfect. Instead of confronting them head-on, your job is to amplify their rivalry. Subtly, quietly. You don't say, "Hey, they're out to get you." You say, "Interesting how they seem to always challenge your ideas in meetings." Or, "Did you notice how quickly they took credit for that last project?" You're not planting lies. You're nudging perceptions, small, deliberate drops of suggestion. And over time, these enemies begin to see each other as the threat. They turn their attention away from you and toward each other. They start playing defense. They become paranoid. They make bold moves too early, trying to secure their position. And as they do, they begin to unravel. Machiavelli called this indirect control, the art of shaping outcomes without being the obvious source. And it's one of the most powerful strategies in his entire philosophy. Because when your enemies fight each other, they reveal secrets, waste resources, alienate allies, damage reputations, all while you remain untouched, quiet, neutral, even helpful. Others see you as composed, reliable, uninterested in drama. But behind the scenes, you're guiding the entire arc of destruction. But here's the key: you must stay invisible. The moment people suspect you're playing puppet master, the illusion collapses. Your silent power becomes obvious power, and obvious power is always vulnerable. So never take credit for what falls apart. Never gloat. Never hint. Never wink. Let others assume the downfall was organic. Let them believe it was fate, miscommunication, or coincidence. Because when you guide things subtly, you don't just win the moment. You build a long-term aura of invincibility. And people stop wanting to cross you. Not because they fear punishment, but because they can't quite tell how you work. And that mystery is power. Now, what if you're not in a competitive arena? What if you're dealing with just one enemy? Someone who's targeting you specifically. Here's where Machiavelli offers another elegant principle. Never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it. In other words, don't lower yourself into open conflict with someone who thrives on chaos. The moment you engage, they've already won. Instead, use their own behavior against them. Expose their aggression. Let them talk too much. Let them make enemies. Let them lose credibility through their own impulsive actions. Your role is to remain composed, consistent, and painfully neutral. Because the more they act out and the less you react, the worse they look. Eventually, people start noticing the imbalance. Why are they always angry and you're always calm? Why do they need to talk so much and you don't? Why do they seem obsessed with you? And slowly, your enemy starts to look like the problem, without you lifting a single finger. But let's say you do have to take action. Let's say silence and distance aren't enough. Machiavelli had advice for that too. When you strike, strike to end. No drama. No prolonged fights. No half measures. One clean move. In modern terms, that might mean one clear boundary set with finality. One decisive choice that removes your enemy's influence permanently. One strategic shift that repositions you away from their game entirely. But only after all other options have been exhausted. Machiavelli never advocated for unnecessary aggression. He advocated for precision. He believed the best power is the kind that never needs to announce itself. Let's talk about information. Information, in Machiavellian terms, is currency. The less you give, and the more you quietly collect, the more leverage you have. Your enemies don't need to know your plans. Your allies don't need to know your every thought. Share just enough to remain connected, but never reveal your entire map. Because the moment people think they know how you'll move, they start building traps. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them miscalculate. And when it comes to your enemies, never underestimate the power of letting them speak. Ask questions. Be curious. Let them explain themselves. Because the more people talk, the more they reveal. Their strategies, their insecurities, their blind spots, and most importantly, their need to be seen. Use that. Give them enough room to overexpose themselves. And when they do, you'll have everything you need. Here's a practical exercise. In any conversation with someone you don't trust, speak 30% of the time. Listen 70%. Ask open-ended questions. Respond with phrases like, interesting, or tell me more. Make them feel heard while you gather information. Stay friendly. Stay neutral. But take notes, mentally or physically, because every word they give you is a window into their world. And when the moment is right, those details will give you the upper hand. Let's not forget one of Machiavelli's most subtle weapons. Time. Enemies want urgency. They want quick responses, fast confrontations, immediate decisions. Because when you rush, you slip. But Machiavelli knew that patience is the ultimate power. The person who can wait without panic, without desperation, holds the advantage. So when the pressure builds, pause. Let the noise rise. Let your enemy shout, spin, overplay. And then, when the storm has passed, move with precision. Because the most powerful people aren't the loudest or the fastest. They're the ones who waited for the perfect moment and struck only once. How to turn Machiavelli's tactics into everyday mastery. How to remain untouchable no matter your environment. And the most important rule of all, how to walk away from the game entirely and still win. Because silent power isn't just about defeating enemies. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to fight because you've mastered yourself. And when you do that, the world begins to rearrange around you. Stay with me. We've explored a hidden world, the power of silent observation, the weapon of deliberate silence, the armor of reputation. and how to make enemies destroy each other while you remain untouched. But now let's bring it all home, because Machiavelli's secrets aren't just tactics for war or politics. They're tools for life mastery. And at the heart of it all is a final lesson. Real power is the ability to walk away from the game entirely and still win. Let's unpack that. A lot of people misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he was all about manipulation, ruthlessness, and deception. But if you read him deeply, you realize something surprising. Machiavelli believed the highest form of power is freedom. The freedom to choose your battles. The freedom to stay silent when everyone else is shouting. The freedom to let insults slide because your value isn't tied to validation. He wasn't advocating for endless conflict. He was teaching you how to navigate a world where conflict will inevitably find you, and how to handle it without losing yourself. So here's the ultimate Machiavellian truth. You don't have to play every game you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every provocation. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Silent power means knowing which battles are worth your energy and which ones deserve nothing but your silence. Imagine this. Someone insults you publicly, tries to embarrass you, spreads rumors. Your instinct might be to fight back, to defend your honor, to set the record straight. But here's Machiavelli's challenge. Will engaging them elevate you or drag you down to their level? Because some people are chaos incarnate. They want your reaction. They want to see you flinch. Because if they can shake your calm, they feel powerful. But if you remain unmoved, the power stays yours. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects back their insecurity. People start asking, why is he so desperate to provoke them? Why is she obsessed with tearing them down? Why does he seem so calm while everyone else is frantic? And slowly, the attacker loses credibility, while your reputation grows, all because you chose not to play. But let's be honest, there's a cost to this path. Choosing not to react means swallowing your pride sometimes. It means letting people believe things about you that aren't true for a while. That's hard, especially if you're someone who values truth and justice. But Machiavelli teaches that patience often delivers justice in ways immediate retaliation never could. Your enemy will eventually reveal themselves. People will see patterns. And when they do, the truth comes out far more powerfully than if you'd shouted it from the rooftops yourself. Here's another layer of silent power. Redefine what winning means to you. Most people define victory as being right, being admired, crushing the other side. But that's an exhausting way to live. Machiavelli would suggest a different metric. Victory is keeping your inner peace while achieving your goals. Victory is staying in control of your emotions, protecting your mental space, preserving your energy for things that actually matter. Because every time you get drawn into a needless fight, you pay with your time, your energy, and your spirit. And the truth is, most conflicts aren't worth that price. But let's be clear, there are battles worth fighting. Machiavelli wasn't saying you should let people walk over you. He was saying, if you strike, strike decisively. So when someone crosses your ultimate boundary, when they threaten your safety, your core values, or those you love, your response should be calm, precise, and final. No half measures, no drawn-out drama. One clean move that ends the threat. This is the paradox of silent power. Most of the time, you don't engage. But when you must, you engage so effectively that you never have to repeat yourself. Let's tie this back to real life. Silent power might look like walking away from gossip instead of defending yourself, saying no without explaining why, letting someone talk themselves into a corner while you stay silent, making strategic career moves quietly without announcing your intentions, letting rivals waste time fighting each other while you focus on your craft, choosing silence in an argument because your peace matters more than being right. These moments aren't flashy. They won't get applause, but they add up to a life where you control the narrative. And remember, silent power isn't just about defeating enemies. It's about creating space for your true self to thrive. Because when you're not caught up in constant battles, your mind becomes clearer, your creativity flourishes, your confidence grows from within, not from external validation. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. That's freedom. That's real power. So as we wrap this up, let's revisit the key Machiavellian truths. Observe everything, reveal nothing. People expose themselves if you simply give them space to talk. Silence is louder than words. It creates mystery, respect, and fear in equal measure. Your reputation is your silent armor. Craft it carefully because it fights battles on your behalf. Enemies often destroy themselves. Give them just enough room and enough rope. Patience beats impulsiveness. Time reveals everything. Let fools rush. Pick your battles ruthlessly. Engage only when necessary and win quickly. Freedom is the ultimate goal, and sometimes the most Machiavellian move is to simply walk away. So here's my question to you. Where in your life are you giving your power away by reacting too quickly? Where could silence serve you better than words? And who, right now, might be destroying themselves without you needing to intervene? Machiavelli might answer, step back, watch, and let them. Thank you for taking this journey into silent power. If this message spoke to you, or if you're wrestling with situations where these ideas might help, drop a comment below. What battles are you choosing to avoid? Where are you ready to reclaim your silent power? Or simply type silent power so I know you're with me. And if you'd like more videos about ancient wisdom, modern strategy, and the art of living unseen but unstoppable, consider subscribing. Because true strength isn't always loud. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who says the least. Until next time, observe, wait, and win without lifting a finger.